I know you've been asked about the TS Eliot episode many
Yeah,
times.
yeah,
I don't know if
yeah,
you would care not to go over that again, but if you
It's perfectly all right. I don't mind going over it again.
and so can you tell your version of the story?
Yes. I was very angry with Eliot because he had just published at that particular time a collection of his poems, you see. And there, in the poems, in this collection, were the really terrible anti-Semitic poems he had written before the Holocaust. And that made me very angry because I thought, okay, he wrote them in the 20s. At that time, literary anti-Semitism was very common.
Sure.
How could he publish them again after Auschwitz and all that stuff? And that's why I attacked him. And I attacked him in a poem. It so happened that, God had a marvellous stage manager, that I was invited by Herbert Reed, who was in the chair, to join a number of other people and read poems on this particular occasion. It was the first poetry platform of the Institute of Contemporary Art, so it was a very important occasion. Everybody came.
Yeah.
And I came along with 2 poems. One was a poem, I can't remember now even what it was. It was an inconsiderable poem. But the other one was my famous poem, to T.S. Eliot. Yeah. Herbert Reed was in the chair. It was a crowded occasion because it was the first poetry platform of this particular institution. And I had just announced the title of my poem. And Herbert Reed said, "Oh good, Tom's just come in." God's stage manager, very good. And in came T.S. Eliot with his entourage. I thought, my God.
And was there a moment when you thought, should I read it, shouldn't I read it?
Well, I knew that I had to read it. I knew the poem had the right to be read.
Absolutely.
So I didn't think, no, I won't read it. No. But I did think, God, it's bloody, how am I going to, he's going to be sitting there and he's going to get this. It's a very, very harsh poem.
And was he somebody whose poetry that you admired?
Of course, absolutely. I loved Eliot's poetry. So there it was. I mean, to T.S. Eliot, eminence becomes you now when the rock is struck. Your young sardonic voice, which broke on beauty, floats amid incense, as though a god utters from Russell Square and condescends high in the solemn cathedral of the air, his holy octave to a million radios. I am not one accepted in your parish. Okay. Bleistein is my relative. These are characters he's great. Yeah. And I share the protozoic slime of Shylock, a billet under this, lower than the rats. The shock that evening, absolute the shock that spread. This was the first poetry platform of the Institute of Contemporary Art, so everybody was there. And Herbert Reed said to me, Litvinoff, if I had known that you were going to read that poem, I would never have permitted it. And I thought to myself, you're supposed to be an anarchist.
Yeah. And did anybody, was the reaction in the room mostly hostile to you?
There was shock, absolute shock. And there were 1 or 2 people that, I think Danny Absey jumped up to sort of say something. Danny Absey was a real art. So he had to say something,
in support of Eliot, he said.
Yes, to sort of soften the blow of this poem, because it's a very harsh poem.
Yeah,
It really is. It's a desperate poem to have read at you.
Yeah.
And Eliot, in fact, was heard. He had his head down on a resting on the chair in front of him. And we heard her say, "It's a good poem. It's a very good poem."
And after, with all the furore after the T.S. Eliot occasion,
Yeah.
were you recognised as being a spokesman for Jews in Britain then at that time, or were people pigeonholing you or asking you to write things about
Well, there
that?
were quite a number of people who, I mean, there were the correspondent of the Jewish Chronicle attacking me.
Oh, really?
Certainly, yeah. Yeah.
On what grounds?
On the grounds that that T.S. Eliot is I'm a know-nothing poet, you see, and Eliot is a great distinguished figure. And in fact, I think somebody actually suggested that the reason I attacked him was because I wanted to sort of somehow or other establish a reputation through attacking him.
You were using it as a step up.
Absolutely, yeah. So people say, yeah, that's the fellow who attacked Eliot. Anyway, there was a certain amount of uneasiness about it in the correspondence of the Jewish Chronicle at the time.
Yeah. And to what extent, at that time, just after the Second World War, was the subject of the camps and Auschwitz and what had happened to the Jews in Poland and Germany and elsewhere in the Second World War, to what extent was that often talked about, or was it put underneath the carpet? Did people not feel awkward about talking about it? I don't know the answer. I don't know.
No, I think no question about it. Was much talked about. It
Right.
wasn't swept under the carpet, and that was it.
But did you think of yourself as a poet, an English poet, a Jewish poet? How would you have labelled yourself if you would want to give yourself a label at all?
I would never label myself an English poet. I didn't regard myself as English. I was very conscious of the fact that I was Jewish.